Welcome to the womanwhy podcast. My name is Peta Sklars, coming to you from Los Angeles, California. And the purpose of this podcast is to read my blog that I started in January of 2018. And the post I'm looking at today is from February 25th, 2018. And this journey started as a way for me to find myself. I was feeling sad, depressed, lonely, and I always enjoyed writing. So this blog sprung out of me just putting my truth out into the world and publishing it for everyone to see. And I started to gain friends and support through my blog. And now most of you probably know me through Instagram at womanwhy. I have thousands of women that read this blog and that get something out of it. It helps them not feel so alone, and just the honesty of it. They appreciate that. And to me, it's the only way I can write. I've always written very honestly. I've always written in a journal my whole life. So that is the way my writing has always been. And I was always too nervous to let anyone read it until 3 years ago. So this is my blog post called I Am Okay. I wrote it on February 25th, 2018. I was still married in this blog post, and I was living in Portland, Oregon. I laid on the couch, unable to move. My daughter looked at me sheepishly and asked quietly, "Are you okay, Mom?" I nodded and went back to binge watching Sex and the City. Either I didn't remember many of the episodes or I had never seen them. They were good. Carrie living an amazing life in beautiful New York City. "They never film in the winter," I said to my daughter as I stared at the TV. She walked away. I was useless. It wasn't the drinking of the wine that was the problem. It's when I stopped. It was like all of a sudden a car coming to a screeching halt or loud music being turned off. I could hear myself think again, but my thoughts were slow and uninteresting. My mom had died 4 months before in the beginning of December. I had bought a case of wine to last me through the holidays, but when I learned of her death, I drank most of them in a week. I wasn't close to her, but her opinion meant everything to me. If she didn't like something, all of a sudden, it lost its luster. We had a strained relationship of having no boundaries and being too close, and then being distant and uncommunicative. It was an all or nothing relationship. There was no in between. I was expecting her death, but when it happened, I went into a state of shock and denial. I wanted to spend every weekend in a dark bar drinking strong margaritas after she died. Sunlight hurt my eyes. I didn't talk much about her. My mind was a jumble of anger and pain. I had held in so much anger over the years that now it came up to the surface like hot, boiling water. The alcohol was like lighting a match to my boiling blood. Not the reaction I thought I would have, because I had it out with my mom years ago. But when friends would ask me about what our issues were, my mind would fog over, and I felt like I was babbling incoherently about our relationship. They would look at me questioningly, like I wasn't giving them good enough reasons not to talk to my own mother. There was no simple explanation for why we didn't get along. It was so many little things that added up to a dysfunctional relationship. For example, I remember when I was 13 years old, she told me we would never be friends, that she would always hold power over me. I remember being so sad when she said that, as I was going into my teen years and wanted to be considered a worthwhile female counterpart to my mom. But she would have none of it. She ruled our family, and there was no room for another female. I didn't try and challenge her. I just stopped trying to be her friend. When I found out she died, that thought immediately came to my head was, I forgot to tell her I'm okay. This thought confused me. Why would I think that? I guess because she never acknowledged that I had moved on with my life, and I figured it out for myself the best I could. I got over her not coming to my wedding because she said she had a cold. I got over her not coming to see me in the hospital when I had my daughter. I got over her lack of interest and support of my life. I moved forward anyway. I liked the distance from her when she was alive, because when I wasn't interacting with her, I could pretend that if we were talking, that she would be happy for me. I could fantasize about the relationship we would have one day, where she would see me for who I am and be proud of me, and she would be calm and she would listen to me. It was a good fantasy. It made me happy, and it always was in the future. But when she died, she took away that fantasy. That time would never come now. I didn't even know how badly I wanted that time until I knew it wasn't possible. So a 4-month drinking binge began, and when she died, to mourn what I never had, a mother who was my friend. I didn't go see her when she was dying because I knew she would say something negative to me that would stick in my head forever. I couldn't do it. Instead, I fantasized that by me not going to see her, that those few good moments we had together were running through her head, and she had love for me when she thought of me. That is what I believe now, that she loved me in her own way. And what I do know is that I loved her deeply in the only way that I could without losing myself. After 4 months of binge drinking and binge watching Sex and the City, I was done. I gave up drinking for good. Along with giving up alcohol, I gave up my fantasy relationship with my mother, and I am okay. So this was written, obviously, my mother died in 2016, and I wrote this 2 years later, and this was the beginning of my journey to find myself. I took my mother's death very hard, which surprised me. I was not expecting to have that reaction, but it just made life seem so short. And I thought, if I want to do the things I want to do, I better do them now. And it kind of pushed me. I was already kind of feeling lost and disoriented and looking for a purpose. And it just accelerated all those feelings when she passed away, that, I don't have forever to be a writer, to be an artist, to put my creativity into the world. And it doesn't matter how many people read my writing or how many people like my art. It just matters that I'm doing it. And that's the bottom line. And I'm doing this podcast for the thousands and thousands of women who read my blog and get something out of it. And if you don't like it or get something out of it, that's okay too. This is what I feel called to do with my life. And this is the legacy I want to leave, is that we're all human and we all go through hard times, and we don't need to be alone and think there's something wrong with us when we're going through this hard time. We can reach out to each other. We can talk to each other. We can support each other. And, I should not have been so ashamed of my bad relationship with my mother that I didn't talk about it at all. I should have reached out to friends and, people that I could have had these discussions with that would make me feel better. But I kept so much inside. And the way I got it out was writing in my journal. And the way I'm getting it out now is writing in my blog. And I'm getting the support through people commenting, reaching out to me and saying they feel the exact same way I do, which just gives me strength to move forward. So this was a hard blog post to write. Not to mention, my mom let me be abused by my family and did nothing. That was our major issue. And what I really was angry at her about, that she didn't take me out of a negative situation or care even, and kind of added to it. So when you have a mother that doesn't care about your safety and welfare, it's really hard. And so I didn't write about that in this blog post because I was still protecting, people in my family. And I'm telling you about it now because that was the real reason I didn't want to talk to her, and I didn't feel close to her because I didn't trust her. So, and I didn't feel at the time that I could come out with that. I just felt like I wasn't brave enough. So, that was the hidden confusion that I didn't talk about in this blog post. And that was the reason behind all of our dysfunction. So if you're experiencing any of that, I'm right there with you. And I know how hard it can be. So I am going to continue to write and publish things on my blog. And this was 3 years ago, and I've come so far from this. But of course, it will never leave me, and it'll always be a part of my history. And I'm putting it out there to bond with other women and to make you feel like you're not alone. Love you. Thank you.